my name is Bridget and welcome to my channel. Hope you're having a great day. And today's video, you clicked on this video because you got some kind of weird fascination with true crime, I expect. But that's okay, because I do too, and today we're going to be talking about the case of Celeste and Stephen Beard. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. So before we get into today's case, I do want to give a friendly reminder, if you're not subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you here. I do post mystery videos, unsolved disappearances, and solved case. I will also be starting to do some historical mysteries. I think that'd be kind of fun to do on this channel. So if you like any of those things, please subscribe. I'd appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started talking about the case. As a disclaimer before I start, this is an educational video. I am telling this story to bring awareness to this case. I will also not be getting into graphic details or anything disturbing that may bother you about this case. That's not what my channel is for. I want you to learn from this story and maybe look out for shady people in your life like Celeste. So let's go ahead and get started. So Stephen Beard was born into a poor family. He didn't have a lot of money growing up, but he always had a really good work ethic and a drive to succeed in life and become successful. When he was really young, he decided that he wanted to be a doctor and was willing to put into work to succeed and become a doctor later on. But then World War II happened and he joined the Navy. So he joined the Navy for World War II, and after World War II ended, he came home. He got a job at a department store where he slowly worked up the ranks to become a really good salesperson at this department store, and he met his first wife, whose name was Elise, and they married in 1951 and had 3 children. So after a while, the family moved to Austin, where Stephen would get a job in marketing, and he did really well at this job in marketing, and he was able to afford to start his own TV station, which was KBVO. Now this station grew very quickly. He was working his advertising job with this TV station on the side, but the TV station soon became a really big deal and started bringing in a lot of revenue for him, and it was very profitable. Now unfortunately, in 1993, after 43 years of marriage, Stephen's first wife, Elise, did pass away of cancer. After Elise passed away, Stephen decided to sell the TV station, into which he got a whopping $54 million for the TV station at the time he sold it. Now, after he sold the TV station and his wife had passed away, he was single and rich. And as we know, a lot of women will flock to people like that, and they say that Stephen had a lot of people kind of clinging on to him because he had the money and he was going to all these fancy places. He spent a lot of his spare time at country clubs, where he ended up meeting Celeste, which would become his second wife. Now, it's known that Celeste had a rocky upbringing herself. It was kind of unstable, and she herself had a lot of troubles as an adult. She had 2 twin daughters previously before meeting Stephen, and they ended up in foster care multiple times due to Celeste not being able to care for them properly and things going wrong in their living situation. So Celeste wasn't the most stable person, but she did find herself at this country club where she met Stephen Beard, and they hit it off, and she became his housekeeper. Now, when she became his housekeeper, a lot of his people in his family and his friends saw that they were more than just employee and employer. Stephen even invited Celeste to the Super Bowl as his date or companion for the night to the Super Bowl right after they met. Now, as we already know, Celeste and Stephen do end up getting married. Celeste was all over Stephen at this point, and Stephen really wanted to be happy and had a genuine love for Celeste at this time. So on September 18th, 1995, they married. She was 32 years old and he was 70 years old at the time they got married, which is a huge age difference. And a lot of people thought Celeste was a gold digger, but they also saw Stephen and saw him being happy, so it didn't really matter to them, at least to the ones that saw Stephen. As long as she was making him happy, what was the harm in it? Now, there was a prenup involved with their marriage. As a marriage gift, Stephen would give Celeste $500,000 when they got married, and if they stayed married for 3 years, she would receive an additional $500,000 as an agreement. So if they worked it out, she'd be getting $1 million within 3 years from him. She also got a monthly allowance of $12,000, which would increase over time just to spend on things. Now, Celeste took advantage of this first $500,000 as soon as she could. She spent all of her $500,000 from when they got married in the first 6 months of their marriage, and she was out of that $500,000. She was buying cars, expensive clothes that she never even wore, and a lot of jewelry as well. Personally, I don't even know how you spend $500,000 in 6 months. it seems excessive. I mean, obviously it seems excessive, but I wouldn't even know what to do with that. Would you guys know what to do with $500,000 and spend it in 6 months? Be like smart about it, and you know you didn't have any money coming in for the next 3 years probably. Seems iffy. Now, Steven loved Celeste, and he also really loved her twin daughters, and they loved him as well, and Steven ended up adopting both of the daughters as his own. So the girls, Steven and Celeste, moved to a nicer neighborhood. The girls were able to go to a really nice school, find a lot of friends, and have a really good time in a nice, stable environment when they were living with Steven and Celeste. Celeste was smart and spent the first 3 years of their marriage pretty tame, just being kind of like a good wife. But as soon as the 3-year mark hit of their anniversary, Celeste started going out partying with multiple different men all of the time behind Steven's back. Celeste would party with multiple married and unmarried men without Steven present, and she even hung out with Jimmy Martinez, who was her ex-husband. They also had a party where it cost over $10,000, which Steven paid for the twins' 18th birthday, and Steven wasn't even invited. So both of the parents, Jimmy and Celeste, went to this party that Steven paid for, over $10,000 paid for this party, and Steven wasn't even invited to the party. Celeste was partying constantly, just being kind of reckless for being in her position and being a married woman, and she would say to people that Steven wasn't satisfying her sexually and that Jimmy could, her ex-husband Jimmy could, and saying that he just wasn't a good man. She even lied to some people saying that Steven was abusing her, but no one believed it. And she decided to start tampering with his health so that he couldn't complain about her constant partying and going out or see anything suspicious that she was doing. Celeste would put Everclear, which is a very strong alcohol, into some of Steven's drinks mixed in, and then she would also crush up sleeping tablets and put it into his food so that he would be out in the middle of the night and not waking up anytime soon, and she can go party all night and not be questioned as to where she was because he would be asleep. Now, Celeste's lies did catch up with her at one point, and Steven realized that Celeste had rang up a bill of over $300,000 that would have to be paid in just partying and fees and expenses and shopping that Celeste had rang up over the past couple months. After she had received her other $500,000, she spent an additional $300,000 and rang it up on his bill, and he was furious, kicked her out of the house, and started threatening to divorce Celeste. Now, Celeste was not happy that Steven had kicked her out, and of course she tried everything she could to kind of win his attention back. She wrote a very in-depth, trying to be meaningful letter to Steven directly, and it was very like trying to be sympathetic. Steven saw right through that and said, no, you know, this is it, we're done. Celeste did not handle this very well and then threatened to start killing herself. She even put a gun to her head in front of her twin daughters, threatening to kill herself if Steven didn't take her back. Now, Celeste was taken by Steven to be checked into a psychiatric center called Timberlawn, which is a high-end facility. It's like very expensive, only like rich people can afford to go to Timberlawn Psychiatric Center, and she was checked into there for her psychological problems and stress. Now, while in Timberlawn, which for some reason my mouth does not want to say Timberlawn, it's just a really weird word to say. Say it aloud to yourself right now, because it's just very weird to say together. I don't know why. But while in Timberlawn Psychiatric Center, Celeste met someone named Tracy Tarleton, and Tracy befriended Celeste, and they began a really strong friendship right away. Now, Tracy has a history of mental problems. She suffered from a lot of mental problems. She also had a past of drugs and alcohol, so she was very unstable. Celeste had a lot of mental issues herself, but never had a problem with drugs or alcohol too much other than her constant partying. But Tracy was at another level of just like a little unstable, but they did start a good friendship, and eventually after they were both checked out of this mental facility, they became friends in contact still and everything. It became more than a friendship. It was obvious to everyone that they were having an affair just by the way they were interacting, the way they looked at each other, the way they got really close to each other. It was obvious to everyone that Tracy and Celeste were having an affair on the side. Now, Steven felt weird about Tracy and Celeste's friendship, as did everyone else. He was not as oblivious as Celeste thought, and he tried really hard to discourage this friendship, but it didn't really work. Celeste was going to do what she was going to do, so Steven tried to take her away and kind of get like trust of his wife back and kind of like get a grasp on their relationship and decided to take Celeste on a European vacation. And one night they were just packing, and that's when things went wrong. Now, after the night of packing for their European vacation, everyone went to bed. Celeste and Steven were sleeping in separate rooms at the time, and it should be noted right now, because I feel like you know where the story is going, Tracy Tarleton was told by Celeste multiple times behind Steven's back that Steven was abusing Celeste, and Celeste made herself seem like a victim. But she's not a victim, y'all. She's just not. So let's go ahead and talk about what happened. Now, in the early morning at 3 a.m., an assailant broke into the home of Steven and Celeste and broke into Steven's bedroom. They went all the way up the driveway, broke into Steven's bedroom, and shot him once in the stomach with a shotgun. Now, Steven had woken up and called 911. He was very panicked. I'm not going to play the 911 call, but you can look it up if you want to hear it. He is obviously panicked. He had just been shot in the stomach with a shotgun. He even says that his guts had flew out of his stomach. So I'm not sure if he knew he was shot with a shotgun, but he knew his guts were flying out of him, and that's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. I said I wasn't getting into like graphic things, but when I heard him say that, I was like, oh my god. But yeah, 911 came and they took Steven to the hospital immediately. Now, Celeste and Celeste's two twin daughters, who were adopted by Steven, all went to the hospital when Steven did to like kind of check up and see how he was and things, and they were all tested for gunpowder residue at the scene of the hospital. When they were being tested for this gunpowder residue, they were all questioned as, do you have any idea what happened? Do you have any idea of who might have done this? Do you have any suspicions as to who would do something like this to Steven? And one of Celeste's daughters did point the finger towards Tracy Tarleton. Now, one mistake that was made by the assailant who came into the house and shot Steven, first of all, it's a shotgun. It's a shotgun. You can't shoot someone with a shotgun. Like, you know what damage that does to somebody? Oh my god, I'm surprised he didn't just die on the scene. Like, that's in craziness. Oh, okay. But regardless, Tracy Tarleton, after being pointed out by one of Celeste's daughters as possibly suspicious, the police went to go question Tracy, of course, and asked if she owned a shotgun. She said she did, and they showed the shotgun to the officer. She was like, oh yeah, here it is, blah 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 blah. But one thing that she made a mistake of at the scene, because spoiler alert, she did the shit, she left the shotgun shell that she used to shoot, like, so when you shoot it and the shotgun shell pops out, she left the shotgun shell at the scene, and it was matched. Her shotgun shells that were in her gun matched the one found at the scene, and with the suspicion placed, Tracy Tarleton was under arrest for the shooting of Steven Beard. Now, Steven Beard was alive at this time. He did not die. He was still living, still kicking. Good for him. I mean, I cannot imagine the strength it takes to survive a shotgun shot to the stomach, and applause to those doctors for keeping him alive through that. It's amazing. Now, you would think after Celeste's lover, Tracy, was arrested for the shooting of her husband, and her husband was in the hospital trying to recover from a shotgun wound, that Celeste would be heartbroken, devastated, saying she didn't know what happened. But instead, Celeste was out shopping. She spent over $80,000 on one piece of jewelry while he was in the hospital, and she spent a lot of money gambling. Rather than being by Steven's side or trying to talk to Tracy, wondering why she did this, she was out shopping and gambling. Now, Celeste talked Steven into giving her a bigger allowance per month while he was in the hospital, and he gave in. Celeste had talked him like, oh, I'm going to have to take care of everything while you're in the hospital, let me do this, I'm going to have to run these errands and pay for everything myself while you're recovering. So she got a bigger monthly allowance from Steven. Now, unfortunately, Steven Beard could not recover from his injuries, and his health slowly declined, and he passed away and was buried next to his first wife, Elise. Now, at the time of his death, Steven Beard was worth $10 million, and Celeste stood to gain $6.6 million from properties and assets from Steven at the time of his death. The rest of it will be split amongst his children and Celeste's twins. Now, Steven's life insurance policy did put a hold on the money due to the weird circumstances surrounding Steven's death, so Celeste started to freak out a little bit. She went through her closet and returned over $25,000 worth of clothing that she had never even worn with the tags still on to department stores, and of course, with that amount of money and no receipt, she got $25,000 in store credit from multiple different stores, and she made her daughters do this to like get the money. She can get it back in store credit, whatever, but she made her daughters do this even though they didn't want to, and she said it was really embarrassing for both of the twins to be doing this, even without like receipts and everything. Now I am telling you this fact because it really shows you that Celeste had a lot of control. She was very controlling and very mean and abusive to both of her daughters. She also wasn't great to Steven, poisoning him, and we all know that Tracy shot Steven for Celeste. But it just goes to show she was a very manipulative and very controlling person. Her daughters have stated in interviews that they just felt very controlled and they were very scared of Celeste. One of the daughters even claims to be brainwashed that Celeste was a better person. She now sees that she was a really terrible person, but Celeste always forced everything to make it seem like Celeste was the victim. They were not helping her, kind of thing. Now, once Celeste heard that the police may be interested in bringing Celeste charges for the death of Steven from Tracy, she decided to check herself back into the psychiatric facility where she could claim a mental illness problem if it came time for her to go to trial if she got charged with anything. But of course, she checked out very soon afterwards, and she asked one of her daughters to pick her up. But when she couldn't, she got the other daughter to come pick her up, and it was a terrible ride home. Apparently, Celeste was on the phone cussing out the daughter who wouldn't come get her, and then she was leaving her very threatening messages. The daughter who received this phone call, who was not in the car, the other one was driving the car. So the one who received it and could not pick Celeste up and didn't want to pick Celeste up, said she wanted to just leave her there, recorded the messages secretly and captured all of this horrible phone call of Celeste yelling at her and even threatening to kill her. Both daughters felt very victimized and very scared and frightened of their mother, so they decided to go with this recorded phone calls. There was a couple of recorded phone calls from Christina, one of the daughters. They decided to bring it to the police and just let them hear it so they know what kind of person Celeste is. Now, while in incarceration, Tracy kind of figured out that Celeste didn't really love her. She hadn't heard from her as much as she thought she would. She wasn't getting the same like kind of interaction back from Celeste that she had given by shooting Celeste's husband for her, and Tracy decided to go ahead and testify against Celeste. Celeste spent over $500,000 in her defense at her trial. She got very expensive, fancy celebrity lawyers to defend her, and they did a really good job defending Celeste as best they could, but the evidence was there. Celeste tried everything she could to try to downplay how she looked. She kind of looked kind of downy. She even came in at one point with crutches and a cast on her leg, to which she had no explanation for it and no one ever questioned as to why she did this. It was all theatrics to try to make Celeste look like a more sympathetic victim of the situation, like her husband had been shot, she had nothing to do with it, kind of thing. Since Tracy had agreed to testify against Celeste at her trial, she did so and went on to say that Celeste had tried to kill Steven multiple times before this ordeal, giving him forced botulism if possible, but none of these things worked and Steven kept on living. So Tracy said that Celeste had been threatening to kill herself if Tracy did not do this for her. Personally, I'm inclined to believe this just because there is accounts of Celeste putting a gun to her head and threatening to kill herself multiple times in front of her daughters and Steven in the past. So the fact that Tracy says that Celeste threatened to kill herself does not surprise me whatsoever in this case. But Celeste even put her 19-year-old daughters down for defense, and they didn't want anything to do with her and said that she was a terrible mother. Celeste's defense attorney tried to cross-examine both of the daughters on the stand and make them out to be terrible people. They claimed that the daughters were trying to gold dig and get all the money that Tracy would receive, but the daughters were honestly just frightened of their mother. But their defense attorney really cross-examined them and was very harsh on the daughters for testifying against their own mother, for saying that they didn't trust her, thought she was a threat. They claimed that the daughters were trying to get all the money that Celeste would receive because she wouldn't receive it if she was prosecuted for this crime. So after the trial, Celeste Beard was found guilty of capital murder and she was given 2 40-year prison sentences and a fine of $10,000. Celeste Beard will be 80 years old when she is up for parole, and she denies everything. She hates her daughters, and even while in prison tried to contact the bank to get a allowance of $12,000 per month, but the bank denied this request. She claimed that she had this monthly allowance and even if he died she should receive this. But sorry Celeste, once you are indicted for murdering someone, I'm pretty sure any deal you had with them kind of goes over. So that is the case of Celeste and Stephen Beard. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you learned something. Let me know down below what you think of this case. I know gold digging is kind of a thing, but just, why are you murdering him? Why are you murdering him? I mean, you already married someone who's 70-year-old, now you're murdering? Like, it's ridiculous. People are evil. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Which, let me know what you want to see next. Let me see what kind of cases you have for ideas. I'd love to hear about it. Bye, guys.